Earlier today, the noted short seller Hindenburg announced a new short position against Roblox, also publishing a short report against the company. RBLX is the ticker. This caused the shares to gap down at one point, down around 10%, I believe. Since then, recovering a bit, down around 3-4% now. I actually really like short reports. I previously did a video on when a short seller report came out on one of my top holdings, Fairfax Financial. You can see the video because it effectively enables you to steelman your view of the company. And this is something Charlie Munger even once talked about, which is that he doesn't want to make a position until he can make the counter argument even better than the best opposition. So, if you can read the short seller's perspective and say, yeah, I'm factoring all this in and I'm still confident, then it's arguably worthwhile to scale up the position. So I like to see the counter argument that makes me go, okay, how bad is it actually? And so let's dive into the short report for Roblox to understand what's going on here. Because when you look at the financials, you see a company with fast growing revenue growth. Not a lot of businesses reporting 30% plus revenue growth, bookings up 20%, active users up 20%, hours engaged up over 20%. So these key metrics suggest that this is a core entertainment solution that is still rapidly taking market share. However, one of Hindenburg's first claims centers on exaggerated user numbers and activities, and you can see how most recently they reported nearly 80 million daily active users with 21% growth. Now, their research is based on talking with various different data scientists and exploring different games like Roblox's second most visited game, Blox Fruits, where they're just noticing lots of bots and advertisements for bots to effectively boost the traffic to different games. And they suggest, based on their conversations with data scientists, that their daily active users number is actually much lower when you factor in these bots and say how many humans are using it. So suggesting maybe it's 20 to 30% lower, suggesting a lot of these numbers are inflated from bots from Vietnam. And this is also inflating their engagement hours. Personally, I view that as somewhat speculation. It's hard to get an exact figure, but I do view management's core metric of bookings as worth tracking. And bookings was up over 22%, or was up 22% to nearly $1 billion in the most recent quarter. The reason why bookings is important. So I go to AI Ticker Chat. Chat is now completely available for you to talk with, and I go explain how they calculate bookings and what it is. So bookings, this is primarily Roblox's virtual currency, and it reflects the one-time purchases or monthly subscriptions. So this is an immediate cash inflow from the users purchasing the virtual currency on the Roblox platform. So this is the Robux. This doesn't directly translate to revenue. So this is why you can see, in one period, why revenue growth might be 30% and bookings might only be 20%. So there's a lag effect between the bookings when they happen and when they actually count that revenue, because they say, oh, you might have bought a bunch of credits, but you're not going to use them right away. We're going to spread it out based on the useful life of effectively you're using the platform. And so that's the key difference between revenue, which doesn't closely track the cash flows and bookings. So when I see a chart that suggests that bookings is actually doing quite well, I'd say even if you have inflated, user figures, the actual cash flow coming in seems quite favorable. And cash flow, in my opinion, is the North Star and is very hard to exaggerate, let's say, free cash flow over time. And so that's, what I'd want to track. And I see free cash flow over time heading in the right direction. Most recently in the past year, you're talking around, a couple $100 million in free cash flow, trending favorably. And the second key part of Hindenburg's thesis is that Roblox lacks the appropriate safety measures to catch all of the disgusting and extremely unseemly behavior, representing honestly the worst of human nature. The report chronicles several games, names, and instances that are frankly too disturbing for this channel. So if you're interested in diving deeper, you can check out the Hindenburg report that has all this context, but I'm not looking to repeat it. It's unsettling for me personally. And it's particularly unsettling because the user group, you're talking about 32 million daily active users that are under 13 years old, and then the other cohort is over 13 years old. So you can see it's very clearly skewed to a younger audience. So you can understand, this is not, the challenge ultimately with Roblox is that, what degree of you saying you're doing enough to catch the bad actors. And, if you catch 100%, that's ideal. You don't want any of this, especially if it's going to be impacting, the youth that are playing the games. But society is grappling with the question of what's a tolerable amount of sort of poison. And once again, Charlie Munger comes to mind, which is like, hey, if you drop a couple of turds, in a bowl of cereal and a bowl of Raisin Bran, you wouldn't try to like scoop around the cereal and eat. You would just call it now a bowl of turds, and you'd say, forget it. And so that's I think the key challenge for investors to consider. So I'm going to share my own personal thoughts in just a second. First of all, as always, this is not financial advice. Also, recently an Unrivaled Investing subscriber posted in our exclusive Discord, this is a direct quote, "I've recently paid my second annual subscription and couldn't be happier. I've profited enough already to cover the next 20 years of subscription. It's not hyperbole. I actually did the math." So if you're looking for compelling ideas, come check out Unrivaled Investing. Rates are going up, so you will not see prices lower than what you currently see today going forward. So prices going higher, now's the time to lock it in. I think as you think about Roblox and what's actually driving their growth, it's important to understand that a lot of parents in the United States and around the world, but particularly in the United States, feel like they're struggling. And that's why I just showed an image of a dad with his head down, because they're struggling to balance the expectations of being present as a dad, working, and helping raise kids. And I think what a lot of parents are doing is they're turning to the iPad to say, hey, this is a free solution. For the most part, it seems clean. Maybe you play the game yourself for a few minutes and you're like, this doesn't really cost anything. Seems harmless. A lot of the games are free to play. They seem kind of fun and, maybe even nerdy. And so you're thinking, what's the harm? And, this might be a crutch for clearly a lot of parents, because you have tens of millions of kids on the platform. And that's translating into real growth, as I've already covered. This year, they're expecting over $500 million in free cash flow and bookings to surge around 20% to over $4 billion. And once again, that's the cash flow coming in. And their growth is expected to continue in the years ahead based on advertising partnerships, where they're looking to, find brands that are more eager to align themselves and market on their platform, expanding internationally, and making further investments in their developer and creator ecosystem, where effectively you get this very strong network effect where you have more developers building and more creators creating, fun avatars or costumes or tools that people in the, gamers can use. And then, there's more transactions going on the platform. And so it becomes a richer, ecosystem for people to go to. So you can see sort of these growth drivers for Roblox in the years ahead. And you also see that this is one of the things I love with investments. And this is a key part of my own investment journey is I try to keep a very simple, checklist, first level checklist. And one of the key items is management alignment. Does management have real skin in the game, where if the stock were to fall 50% tomorrow, it would be truly upsetting for them, because this is their life's work, or this is their baby. And so when I see that the founder, CEO, David Baszucki, has a voting share, owns tens of millions of shares in Roblox, that is what I like to see. So you're more likely to get a favorable outcome. You're less likely to get manipulated results. So I think I put less concern about, let's say, manipulating the daily active figures or the user figures, especially because I already called out the free cash flow is heading in the right direction. Bookings seem to be heading in the right direction as well. So I'm less concerned about the first key, risk that Hindenburg called out, especially because you do have some of this, management alignment, founder alignment. But I also do note that there's been a lot of insider selling. So I don't like to see that, to the tune of tens of millions of dollars just over the last few months, by David Baszucki. And so I don't like to see that. And so that does further give me pause beyond the threats. So I think it's important to understand, one is I, consider the dynamics already discussed. And it's too hard for me based on the Charlie Munger comment of, like the bowl of turds. That's just not, it's not the type of, It's not the type of investment that gets me excited in life. I don't want to be thinking about that. Like if I owned a position in Roblox, I would probably think about that risk every day, and it would bother me. The unseemly aspects that Hindenburg called out. So that's not something for me on my own personal journey. But then just running through the math, trying to think, well, in a hypothetical scenario, how much are investors actually playing for? And so, I lay out a range of margins for this business, 15 to 25% margins over time, assuming, let's say, 10 to 20% bookings growth in the years ahead, and assuming around 20, 25 times multiple based on the assumed free cash flow that they're going to be generating in the years ahead. And it's not like I'm even penciling out like hundreds upon hundreds of percent upside. I'm really saying maybe there's like 100% upside. Maybe there's like 50% downside based on the current price, if they execute. Of course, stock price can go higher or lower depending on the execution, depending on sentiment. But given the sort of the gag factor that Hindenburg called out, and it just, the reality is that they're still not generating meaningful actual profits. They are generating free cash flow. I just look at this and it's too hard for me. It's not something that I'd want to think about on a daily basis. There are easier bets, founder-led, where you can say, hey, I feel good about this. I like the products that are coming to market. I understand that it is unrivaled and that it's, going to create solutions to problems that, I really want to think about. It's not just, hey, sweeping some problems under the rug and, I don't want to think about that. So I look at this as, yes, if you're a shareholder in Roblox, maybe you see 100% upside type of potential over the next 5 years. But for me personally, I just think there are easier, more stomach soothing type of investments that I would feel good about. And at the end of the day, you only live life once. And so for me personally, I wanted an investment journey that gets me excited, where I go, okay, I like that there's management that owns, let's say, 40% of a company, and they're talking about how their products, maybe it's a niche medical product, and I'll be talking about that in my letter, where it's, management's effectively saying it's unrivaled. That gets me interested, even if it's a fairly unique niche. Anywho, I hope this video has been helpful for you talking about Roblox. If so, please make a point of hitting that thumbs up, hit that subscribe button. Thanks so much for watching Unrivaled Investing.